Welcome to Carolina Sculpture Studio. My name's Clint Button, and I'm a granite sculptor. Now, anybody that knows stone will look at this table full of rifflers and say, well, if you're a granite sculptor, why are you talking about rasps and rifflers? Because they don't get used in the process of carving granite. And you'd be right. But I do soft stone in studio on occasion, and I've bought out a number of studios over the years because when I opened my studio, all I had was two hand machines. I didn't even own a chisel, and so I had to buy everything. I didn't, have any great amount of tools to start the studio because I owned my hand machines and everything else was supplied by my master sculptor. So I got tutored along the way about things like rifflers and quality, and so I'm going to tell you this. Hopefully, it will help others save a little bit of money. Now, a quick crash course on rifflers and rasps in general. These teeth are considered to be stitched. You take a soft piece of steel and you strike it with a hardened tool to raise these teeth. And the way they're stitched has everything to do with how they perform. Now, how they're tempered and everything is important too, because they can, if they're a little soft, they go dull fast and they're no good. But stitching is critical to rifflers, and that's not always clear, and a lot of times the people that buy them don't know a good riffler from a bad riffler, especially when you're starting out, and I'm one of those people. I didn't know the difference. I found out, so I'm going to tell you all about it. When they're stitched, I don't know if we can make this. The idea is that the teeth will not be in straight lines from the front to the back in terms of how you stroke the stone. You want to have teeth that capture the entire surface of the cut, because if you have teeth that are in line with each other to where there's a line of teeth and a gap, your tool will develop a memory on that stone, and it won't cut evenly. It will cut and it will track, and it'll drive you nuts. And if you've only had cheap rifflers, you won't know the difference. So I'm going to try to tell you how to go about it in a better way. Now, you can go to the local discount store and get some of these made in China rifflers. And the stitching's horrible on it. It's like almost perfectly lined up. And you may not know that until you buy it, but you can look down this tool, and I don't know if I can get it quite on the camera, but the teeth are in a perfect line. That doesn't work. That's not what you want. That's a fail. What these tools are fantastic for is to buy them, put them on the belt sander, smooth them off, get rid of all your teeth on both sides, and make them into clay modeling tools. And you'll have some of the best low butt clay modeling tools. If you don't have the ability to forge something, or to have a torch to be able to heat something up and reshape metal just a little bit, you can take these and you can have half a dozen really fantastic clay tools really fast, either on the grinder or the belt sander. And these are disposable cheap. So if you've got some of these little made in China sets, that are dirt cheap, the brand doesn't matter. If you see this little cheap plastic case, that's probably where they came from, and they're probably not worth the time of day as a riffler, but they make fantastic clay tools if you smooth this off, because that's how old sculptors used to repurpose these. Is they would take old, worn out, good rifflers and they would tune them up and make them into clay tools because it's cheap. Now, doing this work, if you do this work for a living, I want to minimize my expense so I can maximize my profits. And there's no reason to spend $20 to $50 per tool if I can make it for $1. It just doesn't, and have it and own it, and there's no reason to spend the money. So whenever you look at a tool, if you can look at it, and these teeth, you look at it from the end, the way the tool would see it, or experience it. And if those teeth are all lined up to where it looks like a hump and hump and hump and hump all the way down over the top, you don't want it. You want one that has a very flat surface, because there's so many teeth sticking up and they're just off center from each other enough that they capture the entire surface. That's what you want. So these are cheap junk, throwaway, whatever. I thought I would do well and go ahead and spend the money and get through one of the major suppliers and buy a big set. Now, this set didn't come in the box. I had to make the box so I could get them all organized. And I thought I was doing great. They had both tools that were made in Italy that just say Italy on them. And they had tools that were Milani, made in Italy, that were actually a name brand. These are a no-name tool. And they don't actually say made in Italy, they just say Italy. And when you compare them to some of these cheap throwaway ones, it makes me kind of wonder where they made them. Because they're the same square cross-section that is typical of the throwaway tools. And they've got the same awful stitching. They're junk. As far as I'm concerned, I used them a little bit and I was really disappointed, because these cost basically the same as a Milani tool, as a name brand tool. And I asked the sales rep what the difference was, and they couldn't tell me that there was any difference at all. And so I spent quite a bit of money and bought a whole bunch of these tools to make this set. And all those tools I bought, well, the only ones I used in this set are the ones that I didn't buy from there. That's the only thing in this box that I actually used, because the rest of them just ought to be turned into clay tools. They're not worth the time of day. The stitching's horrible on them. And so that's something to really think about. If you're going to spend, $20 a stick or whatever they cost, you better buy a name brand tool. Now, this is a Montoya. It's stitched really well. It's erratic enough that it gives a full coverage when you cut. I've got a number of Milani tools here, and you can see that even with the same tooth size, that this one is stitched in a more erratic pattern, and this one is stitched in a very, very consistent pattern. This is the tool you want. This is a Milani, and my favorites were these Casellis. Oh man, they were so gorgeous, sweet. You can see the Caselli is stitched even a little bit finer. This one, the teeth are a little bit finer than this one, but they were just exquisite. Now the French, probably going to say it wrong, Oreo or whatever, A-U-R whatever, are hand stitched, and they're probably more analogous to this. The Milanis are usually still available. You can find the Milanis, and they're great. These Casellis have been out of production for a long time. I used them on some stone that turned out to be a little bit harder than I wanted, and dulled it, and it really broke my heart because they were such awesome tools. Now, let's see. We've got some German tools. The Italian tools, the good ones, tend to be octagon. They're hex. They're 6 to 8 size, usually 8, sometimes 6. These German tools are round, and then they're stamped to be flat. And these are stitched more consistently, but they're stitched more like a mass-produced tool that's done properly. These cut really well. The only thing I don't like about them is they've also got a lot of cut on the side. So I like having tools that, ideally if I use these a lot, I'd probably get one and leave it with the sides, and I'd take the other one, I'd dress this off smooth, because having a file or a rasp that cuts only on the face you want it to with nothing on the side ends up being really, really good, because you'll end up working a surface sometimes, and you'll dig into an adjacent vertical surface, and that's not good. So some tools you'll find, I think this is one of the Casellas, and it's stitched super fine. There's a million teeth on it. That'll cut really well. And now, again, these are all for soft stone, so the harder your stone is, the less they're going to cut. You can buy tools with handles. If you got a small workspace or whatever, these may be comfortable, but you're giving up 50% of the storage area because you got this big handle instead of having the two ends. A lot easier to just cover that end up and use it than to surrender this end and not have a cutting surface with it. But these are an option if your hands bother you. Now, they sell these carbide crusted tools, and they're just coated with a layer of carbide that's brazed on, or I don't really know exactly how they do it. So, you know, they're smarter than me. These cut pretty well. I find them to be a little bit jumpy sometimes if they've got a real coarse surface. Things like this file with the hand on it, until you bed it in and get a cut going, it seems like it dances around a lot. And I don't like that lack of control, and I don't like forcing it into the stone. A good riffler will just kind of work its way right in. But these are pretty durable, so I rarely reach for them. I can use them, but I don't pursue them. This is another one I picked up along the way somewheres, and apparently you could interchange heads with it. And so this is just one more tool. Some of these tools have the baton ends, the round ends. They've all got their purpose. You know, I'm not crazy about it. It works for unique situations. You'll find some tools will have extremely fine, like these are square and they're marked Italy on them, and they're stitched really fine. They're super fine teeth on them, and so I would expect them to cut pretty well. I use these on occasion. I've got big ones and little ones, and a wide variety. These are all just from, like I said, they're from various buyouts where I bought other sculptors when they wound up their shop for whatever reason, and they are no longer sculpting, and so it's good to have them. But the big takeaway is the Chinese stuff, these ones that are stitched in real straight lines, don't waste your money. If you're going to buy Italian because you think it's good, just because it says Italy on it doesn't mean it's necessarily a good tool. I would buy ones that are from Milani, those Montoya. If you happen to find old Casellas or something, you know, go for it. And some of these other ones, it's hard to tell you what tool and what shape you'll really use. It has a lot to do with your various projects, but typically the better they're stitched, the more teeth they have on them, the better they're going to cut. And even if it's a slower process because they're smaller teeth, the really aggressive teeth aren't going to dig in. You know, you can have a wood rasp and you can use it. This is really best on wood. So, maybe that'll help some people not waste any money buying tools that are sold for the same price at the same shop as a name brand tool, and they can't necessarily tell you what the difference is. I wanted to tell you what the difference is. So buy a name brand tool, stay away from stuff that's stitched real widely, that has a ton of room between the teeth. You know, like this, you don't want that. You want something that looks like this. So hopefully that'll help you with your soft stone tools, and that's about it. Save the Chinese ones for making clay tools, just like the old timers did with their worn out good ones. So my name's Clint Button here at Carolina Sculpture Studio. Thanks for coming in.